Good morning.
Good morning.
How nice, how nice, how nice. Well, it's that week again when we have an NDE speaker, and how wonderful it is. When Bruce dedicated the song to our speaker when the saints come marching in, and I'm sitting next to him and I'm saying, wait a minute, how about one for me when the sinners came crawling back? I'm really pleased to have had the opportunity to spend the last couple of days with our speaker. Peter is a kindred soul for those of us who've had a near-death experience and really get caught up in the after effects. And by the way, if you have never had one, that's all right. God still loves you just as much. And you don't feel like and maybe there's still time for you. But for those of us who've had one, it profoundly changes our life. It really does. And some people don't do much with it. Some people take 20 or 30 years to work through it, especially those of us who had it as a child, had a near-death experience as a child. Peter had his as an adult, and it profoundly changed his life. And he still works in television and screens and movies and in that industry, but he now has dedicated a lot of his life to giving back and speaking to groups and talking about how his life has been changed and what a beautiful, beautiful experience it is when you get this change in your life. He's now a life coach and does readings on Skype and phone, but goes around the country speaking to groups and doing workshops. And from the buzz we got yesterday, which I can feel the energy still, I'm very pleased to introduce Peter Anthony.
I'm a walker and a talker, no podium. First of all, Neil Bonnier. From the moment we spoke on the telephone, Neil, it was instant connection. And then meeting you face to face at the airport, from the moment we shook hands until this very moment. Thank you. Bonnier. Our wonderful talk last night, the full moon, the eclipse. We sat out there and bonded and just looked at the moon and felt those waves. What an amazing experience. Thank you. Two amazing souls here on this planet who welcomed me into their home, not knowing me, and said, thank you for being here. I have to say, your music has touched me so much. It just really is amazing. And I also have to thank all of you who participated in this workshop, who came to the lecture. And you've heard me say this 1,000 times, what an amazing city. From the moment I was landing into Virginia Beach, I was in awe. And there's a strong possibility that after I finish this tour, years from now, that I may come here and find this a place to be called home. Yay. So, thank you. I am so sorry that I'm going to miss next week's speaker. I mean, I love that. The best thing since, Jesus, or compares that to Jesus? I love that, and I'm going to miss that. But do me a favor, when the speaker's here next week, tell him that Peter said hello. Every day, we are given choices. Every day, we are given the chance to make someone else's life better, period. And every day, we are given the chance and the choice to walk into the golden light, that divine light. And people say, how do you know that? Well, I crossed over at 11:11 p.m. on November the 11th in 1987, and I saw that on the other side. That thing we call choice, the chance to make a difference on the planet. And there were a lot of amazing things that I saw on the other side. I could spend hours talking about my near-death experience. But there were two things in particular when I knew I was coming back to Earth that stayed with me. One was poverty. I got the chance to look around the planet and see how people survived in this thing we call poverty. And the other was war. I looked down off the great planet and I saw nation after nation, man after man, basically doing things they shouldn't be doing. And so when I made the choice to come back, I decided that it was my new life to make a choice to make a difference on the planet. Years and years after I processed my near-death experience, and there were a lot of years, I was approached by one of my celebrity clients, and she had been appointed the Ambassador of Goodwill by the United Nations. And they were having a hard time getting media, raising awareness to how people lived in third world countries, raising awareness to how people survived in the Middle East when the United States came in and bombed Iraq. And they had tried with no luck. And she said, well, you know so much media. I'm a producer, writer. And she said, we really would like to have your help. Would you mind? And I said, well, of course. You know, she knew my story of what had happened to me on the other side. She knew how passionate I felt about poverty and the effects of war. I said, what do you want me to do? She said, well, you have to call Magasheen at the United Nations tomorrow and sell yourself. And I was like, oh, well, it seemed great at the time. And I thought, oh, sure. I mean, I have contacts and I know tons and tons of people in the television film world, and certainly the media. And so I remember the next day when I was making that phone call to the United Nations, I got really nervous. I thought, what am I going to say to the United Nations that's going to convince them that I'm able to make something happen if they have not been able to already? And so I sat in a dark office for 1 hour staring at that phone, and that committee was running in my head. What do I say? And you're not good enough, and all those things. Even though I had processed my near-death experience, that committee was meeting in my head. And then I remember a very powerful figure that I met in St. Thomas on Easter, Good Friday, said something to me. Speak from your heart, and your head will follow. So I got on that telephone, and I had no idea what I said. But apparently what I said was the key for me participating with the United Nations. And what I thought would be an easy task turned out to be very short of that. I also found out that I had less than 3 weeks to gather media, to raise awareness on this situation. I said, okay, I'll do it. You would have to go back to that period of time where we were back in that 2003, 2004, 2005 mentality. Me not thinking that way, that's just not how I think, because I'm here about love and kindness and compassion. And there were no return phone calls. The emails I sent out, I never got back. I even showed up at the offices, and they wouldn't take my meetings. This went on, and I was, the last week before the event, less than a week before the event, I had 0 people committed on television and the rags to write this story about what was going on in these third world countries. No one. And so I called Magasheen at the United Nations, and again, the committee in my head, and what am I going to say? And I began to write that script in my head. Oh my God, I've not done my job. Feeling like a failure. And she said something very profound to me. She said, I have great faith in you, Peter. I have to go, but thank you. Okay, thanks, Mag. So I got off that phone, and I remember going home that night And I went to bed, and for those of you who attended the workshop, I spoke of peace. They asked for peace. They asked for peace. And I did my little prayer mantra. And I remember saying, provide the people, provide the places, provide the situations, and it is my job to show up in faith. And I went to bed that night, and I had an aha in the middle of the night. And it said to me, well, you know, you're a numerologist and you're an astrologer. Why don't you contact your immediate friends that you do readings for? I was like, ding, 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 ding. So on that Tuesday, I contacted all my clients that I knew in the media. Now, these weren't the major networks, but we booked on Friday with ABC affiliate, CBS affiliate, NBC, and Fox. Now, no major newspapers were going to participate in this. I remember calling a very high-profile newspaper, and I spoke to one of the editors of this particular department, and she said to me, are you aware what you're doing? And I said, what are you talking about? She said, you're either with us or you're against us. And I thought, oh my goodness, that was hard for me to comprehend. And she said to me, you know, if I didn't know you, I don't want to use the word treason, but this is kind of what you're doing. The shock and awe of her comment really caught me off. So she did not want to participate. Okay, fine. But what I had were the affiliates. And what I had was a New Age magazine with all the UFO stories and the near death and you name it. My kind of newspaper. But they committed. We arrived and did the interviews, and it was amazing. And I remember we were driving the car, and Maggie was speaking, and she said, we were just so grateful that we got the media exposure. And when we showed up on Sunday, we did not know who was going to be there. And when we got out of that car, thousands and thousands and thousands of people were attending. We were stunned, we were shocked. And Maggie said, see? So it was time to go behind stage. And the senators and the politicians and the city councilmen and the news stations were all there covering this event because what we found out they kind of had to because obviously the secondary stations were doing these stories, so it was necessary for them to be there. And speaker after speaker after speaker would get up and they would share their stories, they'd read off their notes and they would speak, and there in the room was an auditorium that was not responding. Just blank, stoic faces. The keynote speaker is about to go on, and she said to me, what am I going to do, Peter? The audience is not responding. Their hearts aren't in this event. And I turned to her and I said, speak from your heart, and your head will follow. And she looked at me and she said, okay. Now, standing beside me was a man in a blue t-shirt. And he looked at me with his dark hair and dark brown eyes and his dark skin, and he came up to me and said, ah, the great man behind the great woman. And I said, no, I'm just a friend, and I really wanted to help her out. And he said, I see. And she went out, and she looked at this packed convention ground. We were outside, not inside, but the convention grounds. And she looked around to all the people, and she said, today I'm going to speak from my heart. She grabbed her notes and tore them up and put them on the ground, and the audience stood up and applauded, and she spoke from her heart. I'm sure she could tell you what she said, and I know I couldn't tell you what she shared that morning. But the man in the blue t-shirt said, you see? The great man behind the great woman. No. It was time for us to go out into the grounds to see how these people in third world countries lived. And so the man in the blue t-shirt went around to the city councilmen and women, and he went up to the mayor, and he even went to the congressmen and the state senators, and not one of them wanted to attempt and walk on the grounds to see how these people lived, the effects of war, and how they lived in poverty areas of third world countries. Not one of them. She turned to me and she said, well, what do we do? I said, well, I don't know about you, but I want to see how they live. I'm kind of a city boy from Texas, Dallas, and I don't know how, other than what I've seen on television, I had no idea. So, as we're walking around, all these children came up to me, and they were grabbing my hand, and they were saying, Abdul, Abdul. And I was like, oh, what? And they were smiling and laughing and cheering me, and men and women were coming up to me. And the man in the blue t-shirt, as we're walking around the grounds, is nodding his head, and he looks over his shoulder over here, and there's a huge limousine slowly following us. And as we're walking around, we're seeing how they gathered water, and how they really survived without electricity, and how they would go and gather water, and how they would sew their clothes, and how they fed themselves. You know, I'm watching all this man, I'm thinking, well, who is he, and why is he following me? And, you know, it's kind of odd, actually. And so anyway, we're around the corner, and the limousine driving slowly, and the man in the blue t-shirt is waving at the limousine. And we're walking around, and living having a grand time, and we're looking around. And again, the children are coming up to us and just hugging us. And I remember I picked up this little boy, and I picked him up, and I kissed him on his forehead, and I hugged him, and he, Abdul, Abdul. And I was like, what? I had no idea what he was saying, but I thought, thank you. And I repeated it back to him. That's what I had to do, right? And as we're around in the corner, and we're going down to the last event, and this was going on for quite some time, the man in the blue t-shirt put his hand up to the limousine. And we came to an area where all the women were going to do henna on our hands. And then this was their proud moment. This was at the end of the event. And the man in the blue t-shirt said to me, would you mind coming with me? And I said, is that okay? I said, I really don't want a henna on my hand, because I just didn't want a henna on my hand. I mean, thank you very much, but I don't know what's in it, and I'm kind of weird about things being put on my body. Anyway, so she said, no, go ahead. So the man in the blue t-shirt did this to the limousine, and I'm looking at him going, what are you doing? Questioning, who is this man in the blue t-shirt, and why is he waving at this limousine? So as we're walking around and just having, small talk and conversation, he asked me if I ever read the Quran. I said, oh, no. Now, for those of you who heard my lecture yesterday, being born and raised Catholic and then getting into this whole New Age concept, I didn't want to go into my isms of my Catholic upbringing, so I said, well, no, not really. And I didn't want to go. And he said, well, what have you learned in your Bible? And I didn't want to go into my Adam and Eve, breakdown of what I thought was true or not true. And so I said, well, not much. And we walked around. And as we're walking back towards the end of the line, I saw these gates, the fences opening up. And he put his hand out to the limousine. Now, out of the limousine came these 4 giant men with dark hair and suits with stern looks on their faces. And the man in the blue t-shirt says, come with me. And I get this hesitation. And these giant men, I couldn't tell you, maybe they were 7'2". In my world, they looked really tall, right? But as I'm seeing these men approach me, I thought, oh my God, this looks like Secret Service. Or this is security. And my mind went, or assassins. And I had seen enough Jason Bourne movies in my life to know that you don't get in a limousine with a stranger with 4 men in suits who have stern looks on their faces. So I began to back up. What's going on here? The children were all playing around, Abdul, and I'm home. And the man in the blue t-shirt has my elbow and he's pushing me towards his limousine. And I have to be honest, I was scared. I thought, okay, now, again, the committee in their head and being in the movie industry, we write these scripts, right? So I had this vision of me being put in the back of the trunk. You know, that's just where your mind goes because you just don't know. And having worked in D.C. and in politics and the CBS and ABC, I knew there were a lot of things backstage that we just don't discuss. And I was about to enter one of those zones. So anyway, the security came up to me and they kind of, the word guided is not the word I want to use, perhaps not even escorted. I was kind of pushed towards the limousine, and all I could see was a leg. As the car doors opened, that's all I could see. And as I climbed into the limousine, all these children and men and women were screaming, Abdullah, Abdullah. And I'm looking around, and the door closed. And this very elegant man reached his hand out, and he said to me, "Thank you. I'm the Prince Aga Khan, and this is the princess, Her Royal Majesty. We cannot thank you enough for what you have done. What you did in less than 1 week to get media here, we could not do in 1 year. And because you gave from your heart, my people have decided they want to award you a blue t-shirt." Pulled out this blue t-shirt, and I'm like, oh dear. And you know, I'm very small. This t-shirt was a bathrobe. But I had to be gracious and said, "Well, thank you so very much. I so appreciate that." And he said, "We are so honored. Would you have dinner tonight and be my guest?" And I said, "I would love that." And as I got out of the limousine, scores and scores and scores of men and women and children were all gathered around. "Abdul, Abdul." And I poked my head in the limousine and said, "Excuse me, I have a question. What are they saying?" And he said, "You are the servant of God." And I was like, "Oh, no. My people view you as the servant of God, as do I. Thank you. We'll see you tonight." How many times in life have we been given a chance that is much bigger than ourselves, and we do it? How many times in life are we given a choice, again, choice, that we have to do something because it is the right thing to do? And how many times in life have we had that moment when someone disagrees with what we're doing? You know, I didn't care about the Iraq War and the whole support the country. That wasn't what it meant to me. What it meant to me when I saw on the other side was that imagine any of us here in the United States, if something like that happened to us, and how we would live, how we would survive. And what I saw was great faith. What I saw was these open hearts and kindness, and these children who were clamoring around me, just so happy that we were there. And so I say to you, every day we are given the opportunity, the choice, the chance to walk in the golden light. Now, what I learned in California, I was so lucky and so blessed to go to the Marion Williamson lectures on every Monday night at the Abell Theater, for those who've visited California, and truly an amazing speaker. And I heard something she said that night that stayed with me for the rest of my life and became a part of my ritual. And she said that we're all here to make a difference, that we're all here to walk and to be that soldier despite what others may say about that, or about what we're doing. And what I heard that night was, she was talking to her audience and she said, it's easy to come here tonight and to listen to this message, and we're all inspired, and we all are motivated, but when we walk out that door, the true test of our spirituality happens when we get in that car. It's great to be on top of a mountain and meditating and being in a place called peace, but the true test of your spirituality has a lot more to do with 5 hour in the afternoon, 5 o'clock rush hour traffic, downtown Wilshire. And I thought, oh my God, I know that. And that stood with me forever. So as I traveled here, and you heard my story yesterday, throughout my life, for some reason, I'm the Mikey that sees circumstances that I shouldn't see, how people are treated at the counter. And we've all had our experiences on the phone with American Express and Visa or Amazon and some of those other countries where the job's been outsourced. But the true test is about how we're responding to these people, how we're responding when we're waiting in line. That, you see, to me, is how we are being the servants of God. That is our moment. Of course, today is great. And of course, the prayers, I think, are wonderful. I cannot thank you enough. But truly, as servants of God, it begins every day, in the morning, at nighttime. That stranger, I make it a habit every day to find someone that I do not know and embrace that person and just show love. That's it. If I'm able to meet or connect with one person in my daily activity besides my gratitude walk, I couldn't ask for anything more. And so today when I'm here and I'm hearing these songs and I'm looking at all these amazing faces and these beautiful hearts and I call you guys the advanced beings of this planet, because you truly are. We are the light bearers. We are the enlightened ones. We are the messengers of this planet. We are the people that make a difference. We are the people who understand choice. We are these people who are here to walk in the golden light. So you guys, this is the end of my boat tour for the summer. And I start up again in the fall. And it has been a long journey. I've traveled for 1.5 years on airplanes and hotels, and I've had the great fortune of spending some time with some great facilitators and beautiful people. But when I go on the airplane today, and I hear this great music, and I see this fellowship, and I see these beautiful hearts that are filled with so much love, I am truly touched and truly blessed. God bless you for being a part of my life, and thank you for being the servant of God. Amen.